Screw it, we'll do it live. Oh yeah, this is Sci-Fi Snob, and this is the Toplofty Lounge. We're in for a smooth show for you today. Oh yeah, baby. In the 20, 19, 18, 17, 16, 15, baby. Yeah, here we go. In 11, 10, 9. Oh yeah, baby. Here we come. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's go. Hello, everyone. Who is that person with the sexy voice? Welcome to the Top Lofty Lounge, episode 73, Conversations for the Elevated. And that's you, me, and all the rest of us listening out in Radioland. Welcome to all my fellow snobs, and don't forget to ask about that $1 million guarantee. This week on the show, we're talking about pulp science fiction. 2 weeks ago, we did our little discussion about the history of science fiction. We looked at the different areas, and I promised we would look into pulp, and so we're going to do it. But before we do that, let me introduce my co-host. He is the pulp age to my golden age. It's Cam. Say hello, Cam.
Good evening, everyone. I would like to start off, if I may, by saying that we are stuck at 635 subscribers. And it's shameful that Snob has not done more to promote the channel and make it, the success that it deserves to be. Also, I'd like to point out that Snob was like, please, I'm so tired. Oh, I don't want to do the show. And I said, no, the fans deserve it. Weatherman, Snugs, Neutron, these guys are there in the chat waiting for this show. So
he put me in my place, folks. Yeah,
that's
for
right.
sure. And if you believe that, I have a bridge to sell you.
What?
All right. So I have to admit, I'm a little tired today. I don't know why. I've been tired all week. Well, not the weekend anyway. I haven't actually done that much, but I'm tired. Other than a trip to Costco the other day, I'm like, yeah.
I had exciting adventures this week.
Look at this. Snugs is already on me. Kick Snob. I would if I could. You can use the extra sleep. All right. So let's get right into it. Into the pre-show before we get to the main stuff, Cam. What did you do to increase your sci-fi snobification this week?
Well, in addition to my prep for this show, I did delve a little bit into the Blade Runner role-playing game. Not too deeply.
Really?
Yeah, I picked it up. I think I mentioned it. I picked it up a few weeks ago. And so the box set, the starter set, only at this point. But I'm starting to just read into it. I don't know if I'll ever play it, to be honest with you. But it's interesting, and it's by Free League Publishing, which is at this point clearly my favorite publisher.
Those are the guys from Norway or Sweden or somewhere.
Sweden, I believe. Yeah,
Sweden.
And right, and in fact, also more exciting to me is. I think November 18th or thereabouts, they're coming out with the revised edition of the Alien franchise-based role-playing game. So that will be even more cool.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
And that is very similar to the one that I play, Mothership, occasionally.
Well, in
played in a
certain
while.
ways, I'm sure it is, but I think it's a little more expansive. It's a full blown role playing game.
It's been around a little longer, much more detailed, more rule based, more dice throwing and stuff. But
Hmm.
anyway, yeah. All right. Okay, that's it.
Uh, yeah. As far as that goes, yeah.
Oh, hey, well, you know what? I forgot here. We're supposed to be. I'm supposed to be. We're supposed to be enjoying the birds when we're talking about this.
Oh,
Are we not? Yeah.
sure. I'd also like to welcome to the chat, Dave
Dave.
and Death Angel Shadow.
Yeah. Oh, Jesus. That Blue Jay is getting angry there.
Blue Jays are dicks.
They are. They fight with the squirrels all the time. See the big tree in the background there, the pine tree. The squirrels take that and they run out like down the bottom to the lower left corner. And in the lower left corner, there's the you can't see it, but there's a what's it called? A compost, right? So the squirrel's always running into there, and he's like, "Oh, look, what's this? A rotten apple, tasty, or whatever, whatever happens to be in there." He's taking it and running off, and then the wife feeds him peanuts and all kinds of nuts and whatever stuff she buys, and then he goes and hides and stuff. Blue Jays, I don't know if you knew this, Cam, but Blue Jays actually they one of the things they do is they'll sit there and they'll watch squirrels, and the squirrels will hide their stuff. And then the Blue Jay will like swoop down and like take it. And the squirrel will come back later and go, "Geez, I'm sure I put something here. What's going on?"
Poor squirrels.
Half the time the squirrels, they're not very smart. They forget where they put stuff anyway, so it's not a big deal. But anyway, okay, myself, what did I do today? Well, this afternoon was a little bit of board gaming. Have you ever played Legendary Encounters, Cam? Alien.
This is the deck building game.
Yes.
No, I never played the Alien version. I used to own the Marvel version, and I got rid of it because I thought it was really not a very good game. But I haven't played the Alien version.
So I never played it before. First time. It's a co-op deck building game. It's kind of like Dominion is the granddaddy of deck building games, really. So it's somewhat similar to Dominion, except that you're not competing with each other. You're working together against the board. The board is bringing out aliens. You got to kill them together, and you're buying cards, but which are alien related that'll help you to defeat the aliens in the end. There, we just did the first easy scenario because I had never played before, but they get more. We won handedly. We got a little bit lucky, but we won handedly. It was kind of easy, but it does get more difficult, and there are much more. That was the first scenario, so that was good. I enjoyed it. I would play again, definitely. And what else? Carrying on in my journey through the Marvel cinematic universe. Well, up to the end of phase 3 anyway. I'm not going to go any farther than that, I don't think. We watched Guardians of the Galaxy. I remember, seeing some of these movies and like seeing Thor 2 and going, it was a little bit weak. It was okay, that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. Now I'm watching them and I'm thinking, wow, this stuff is head and shoulders above, Captain Marvel or the Marvels or any of the crap that they put out lately. So enjoyed the Guardians of the Galaxy, seeing it again. And my kid liked it. She said it was okay. It was pretty good. Yeah. Everyone likes big Groot and stuff, right? So
I never really liked it. It was okay. It was like a big crazy adventure thing. But it just isn't my favorite.
It was it's a little bit more jokey version of the Marvels, right? Because it's Gunn, right?
Yeah,
James Gunn did it. So I mean, I think that's fine. There's a space for a little more comedy in the in the superhero genre, and I enjoyed that. Now when they all become Josh Whedonified and they're all like that, that's bad, right? So I was always like, keep the Guardians of the Galaxy jokey and stuff. Don't let it into the other stuff too much, otherwise, it'll be a mess.
Oh, you know what? We should probably mention that June Lockhart has passed away.
June Lockhart. Are you serious?
Yes.
No.
Yes.
Oh, that's too bad.
So from Lost in
You want
Space
to give us a
and
little bit of
well,
give us a little bit of background about.
I'm not an expert on her, but I do know she was on the Mother on Lost in Space and was in Babylon 5. The episode where she was playing the doctor, where they had the healing machine, the alien healing machine and such. So
Right. We talked about that one.
Yep.
Yeah, that was season 1, right?
Yeah. So
June Lockhart. Oh, that's sad. Cam bringing down the show. Yeah. All right. Well, rest in peace. I'm sure she was quite. She had a good run, I think, right? She's pretty old, right?
Oh yeah.
So that's good. All right. Well, we're looking at. She was 100 years old. Is that true, or are you just making that up? She was actually 100. Holy moly! That's pretty good. Right on.
Yep.
Oh, Jeff says she's 100 as well. All right.
Born 1925.
It's pretty old. Okay, so let's say hello to everyone in the chat. Who do we got here? We got Weatherman's in the chat tonight. Snugs in the chat. Oh, bugging everybody and sticking it to me as usual. Go after Cam, Snugs. He's your enemy. Neutron's in the chat. Hello, Neutron. Dave is here. Good to see you, Dave. Jeff. We see Jeff all the time. So, yeah. Good to see you, Jeff, I guess. I gotta say.
Wow. Just like, oh, yeah, Jeff. Okay, sure.
Yeah, it's good to see you. PB is here. All hail Space King. Yes. All hail. Praise be to Space King. Give us more Space King. And that's it. Anybody else? I don't think I missed anybody. Anybody else is hiding out there and is keeping quiet to themselves. It says we got 7 people watching the show. Hopefully more will jump in when things get going. Yeah, sometimes those YouTubes with the YouTube something. Yeah, recorded. No, the birds were recorded earlier, of course, because it's dark at night. All you'd see right now would be black. I do have. I do have an image, a live image. Let me just see if I can find it. Oh wait, here we are. All right. Here's the live feed. Let's go. Take that off. Yeah, here's the live feed right there, right now. So yeah, there's the live feed. So pretty good. Yeah, enjoy that.
Yeah, great.
All right, let's go back to our regular scheduled program. All right. Okay. We kept this close to our chest, Cam. But do we have a tool segment? I understand, right?
Yeah, I'll make it quick.
All right, let's do the tool segment. Let me just do the audio here. Tool time. It's tool time. It's Cam's tool time. Yeah. All right.
All right. So regular listeners will be familiar with the fact that I am a huge fan of Victorinox, aka Swiss Army knives. And I don't know, maybe a couple months ago, they had some knifeless models they came out with for, the ideas, that you could travel with them and things like that, or other places you can't carry blades. And I kind of was, a little cool on the whole thing because not that I dislike a knifeless model, but because they weren't particularly inventive or whatever. But I did get one of those, and at the time I was like, oh boy, it felt a little bad. I was a little disappointed because not what it was, but that it means something else isn't coming out. But they said at the time, well, there's other things still coming down the line. Well, that other thing has come down the line at this point. I don't know of any third stage in this. There might be, but the second stage, spoilers, also a disappointment to me. It's not all bad, and it might suit some people's needs, but I'll just briefly go over it. and see if it might be something you're interested in. So it's the line is called the Synergy, and it is new. Some people online, all the tool channels and things and knife channels are chattering about it, and saying that it's innovation. It's innovation. And there's literally zero innovation in this. This is all.
It's a knife without a knife.
No, this one actually had this one. This one has a knife, and I think there's 3 models of the Synergy line. And can you zoom in on or just hit the photograph?
All right, what do you want to look at?
Just the main photograph there. Just make it big.
Make it big. All right,
yeah.
There we go.
Okay. So this is the Synergy X, I think they're calling it. X is basically what they call the ones that have scissors. This is an aluminum or ALOX scaled model. So this is unlike the ones most people are familiar with, the plastic scales. This is all, just the whole body. The external scale is the frame, in fact. And this is based on the Companion, which is a rather new model. That they have some specials and such, and the basic tool configuration is a large blade, a nail file and pick on one layer, and then the driver layer has the which is shown on the bottom there. In the front is you have the cap lifter and large screwdriver and wire bender. And then the other side is traditionally the can opener, but has been replaced in the Companion model with this package opener, which I have tried and is actually pretty effective. It's a good tool, and it also has a small 3mm screwdriver, which is also usable for a number 2 Phillips. So this is kind of their modern. I think the idea is that the can opener is something of the past. And not something they need. So they're kind of moving into this more modern or urban kind of tool. And it's fine. And then in this case, they also have the scissors, the famous Victorinox scissors. 2 other models, they have one doesn't have the scissors, and then one is literally just the blade. Now, keen observers will see that the frame here is a little different from the standard ALOX. It has some scalloped areas, some open areas, and the pattern is the kind of the checkerboard pattern. There, not a different color, but where you kind of get a little bit of a grip to it is kind of a limited section shown at the lower right edge, and then it kind of gets into a smooth area, and then the back is similar to that. Now, the problem that I have with this and all the ALOX models is that they don't have backside tools, meaning on the bottom, what will be the bottom, where the knife is the top, the bottom or the backside, doesn't have any tools for the ALOX. I have no idea why, because it's just a matter of what springs they use. But they didn't innovate the ALOX model, the new ALOX model, to allow for that. Things like the corkscrew, which again, corkscrew isn't maybe too popular today, but other things like an awl or other small screwdrivers, anything on the backside that adds tools, isn't available on any of these ALOX models. So that's a disappointment to me. And then because it's ALOX and not the plastic ones, they don't have any scale tools, meaning toothpick, tweezers, pen, etc. So this ends up being a low tool count model, in 2 ways, because no backside, no scale. And I like to pack as many functions into there as possible. So you kind of lose me there. I really like the ALOX. They're really nice, nice solid feel to them, very durable. They don't wear well in terms of what they look like, but they don't get broken easily at all. But because of the lower tool count, I tend to not like the ALOX models quite as much as the other ones. So they don't end up being my daily carry. In any case, this might appeal to somebody, but the features that they did add are somewhat new for a Victorinox knife of this size, and that is that it has a locking blade. Finally, something that has been asked for forever is a locking blade. And so the main blade on these Synergy models does have a liner lock, which is a safety issue. Now I don't know anybody who's doing any particularly heavy cutting with the Swiss Army knife because it has no finger protection, anything to keep your finger from sliding up on the blade and such, but it does prevent it from closing in places that aren't fascist and don't ban locking blade knives. Fascism, I had to throw that in, very popular word today. In any case, and then the other feature they add is a pocket clip, which again, people are saying that is innovation. I guess a lot of people like the pocket clip as an idea. They prefer that to it kind of banging around in the bottom of their pocket. I use a little hanger on my Swiss Army knife to clip it to the edge, but even so, I've also carried it in my pocket without that for many years. Never had a real problem with it. So, these are, I mean, I can't argue that the blade locking feature isn't good, but it's not an innovation. Some of their larger 111 millimeter models have had that for a long time. And it is nice. And personally, for me, I carry a regular folding knife, with a locking blade for heavier duty use. And actually the blade on the Swiss Army knife the large blade is the thing I use least. I would tend to use the small blade or the scissors or the drivers and things like that. So this just doesn't do it for me. They do offer them so far in 3 colors. They have like a dark blue, the red, and the silver. I'm sure I will pick one up. I'll probably get the blue one as the Synergy A-Lock, or the X A-Locks, which is what we're showing here, just for my collection, if nothing else. I'm sure the quality is excellent as they always are, but they could have done a lot more interesting things than this. Maybe this is just the beginning, and they will get into other things. But anyway, there you go. If you're interested in it, it is a new offering, but like I said, it's a little disappointing to me.
Not quite a glowing review.
No, I wish I could say more. I mean, there's so many obvious things, other things they could have done, and they just don't. They're very reticent to have any real innovation.
I like the pocket clip myself. My Spyderco has one that I bought 30 years ago, but I do like some sort of hole where I can put some sort of string into it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like having a little short little lanyard or something on it.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
And this doesn't appear to have it.
It doesn't have it at all. A locking blade, I think, is a must for sure. But a little hole in the Army, we tie everything to ourselves because everybody loses their shit. So you gotta have one of those. All right.
So there you go.
That's it? Anything else?
That's all for the tools. I'll just mention that I had a harrowing week of home repairs, though, in which I had to dig deep into my my tools to get things to work, because apparently floor heating systems are made by idiots.
Oh no! Really?
Yeah. They long story short, they pack everything super tight into a very compact space where there is no space restrictions, making it very hard to get to nuts and bolts and service the thing. Good news is, though, I did succeed. So there you go.
Okay. I don't know, Cam, if you want to answer this question here by PB. I'm not sure if.
I don't know what a Uniblab is. Is that a real thing?
I'm sure no one would ever try to troll us or anything.
No one would ever do
that. I'm sure that it must be a real thing, because no one would want to do that. All right. Okay. So shall we jump right into our topic of the day? I think we've given enough people who are going to come in. We've given enough time for them to come in.
Mm-hmm.
We can jump right into it. All right. Okay. So I got some slides for this segment. So you remember what we talked about 2 weeks ago, right, Cam? We talked about the various eras in science fiction.
Nope. The minute I leave the show, I forget absolutely everything we talked about. And I was probably drunk.
Okay. Thank you for your help. All right. Anyway, we talked about the various eras of science fiction, and one of them, right before the golden era, was the pulp era of science fiction, which usually is referred to the pulp age or the pulp era. And do you know why that they called it the pulp era?
Well, other than being printed on, pulp paper.
That's exactly why. Yeah,
Right.
That's correct. That's correct. That's why they called it. So it begin. It's usually, as we mentioned this before, it usually refers to beginning at about 1926 with Amazing Stories, which was the first science fiction pulp magazine. Hugo Gernsback was the editor of that. And it was the first one that was dedicated to science fiction. There were others at the time, but this one was dedicated just to science fiction. And the era ends about the 1950s, 1953 or so. Now, during this era, this is the time when science fiction as a genre and a term is defined in this period. So this is when science fiction becomes science fiction. I'll mention that a little bit more later. So now there's a broader definition, which people say started in 1896 with a magazine called Argosy by a guy named Franz Muncy. And it was printed on pulp paper, and he had science fiction stories in it. Now, I don't think it wasn't dedicated to science fiction, and it wasn't a lot. But this is 1926 is kind of the usual. But if you were very liberal, you could say that it was, you could push it back to that far. But it's generally believed to be about 1926. And the narrow end of the age would be 1937, which is the sort of the beginning of the golden age of science fiction. There were still lots of science fiction magazines printed during that time. And, after that time. But, if you were being real, you could say, yeah, end of 1936. Otherwise, 50s. At this point in time, a lot of magazines were printed on pulp paper, and this is how people, got their reading. This is how they did their reading. People didn't go and buy, the story about A Tale of Two Cities, right? Charles Dickens. The way it's written, the way it is.
No.
Oh, because it was printed in the newspaper. Like this is, way before this time, but it was printed in the newspapers, right? And he got paid by the word, which is why it's so wordy. And each chapter would appear in the newspaper, and people would, get it and read it, and then they'd wait next month, or it'd be a special in the Sunday paper type of thing. Mm-hmm. So, so people weren't reading books as much as of course there were books, but a lot of people were getting their reading from these pulp magazines, right?
Just a note on that. I learned in looking into this that paperbacks pretty much didn't exist at that time.
Yeah. I mean, there were some books printed for this, of course, but it was it was expensive. Mm-hmm. And, nobody would would you pay for a copy of a book hardback and stuff if it was the Bible, for example? Yes, because you're going to read it over and over again. But for some silly science fiction or Western story or something like that, no one's going to pay that money for those kind of stories. Those were just sort of it's like how comic books used to be. Mm-hmm. Right now people are buying them and putting them in bags and locking them away and thinking they're going to be worth $1 million in 50 years. But originally comic books were like for silly sort of stories, and you just you threw them away or you gave them to someone else afterwards. You didn't collect them or keep them or anything. No one would think of doing that, right? It was like a newspaper, right? Mm-hmm. You don't keep your newspaper. So so this is the comic books fit into this style. This is the same, except less pictures and more just reading. So pulp magazines at the time, of course, included westerns, crime fictions. Those things were quite big, much bigger than science fiction was at the time. And the actual term of science fiction didn't come into use until 1929. Gernsback originally used the word scientology, scientific fiction. He started calling it that. And if you look back, even like Jules Verne, his book were called Voyage Extraordinaire, and H.G. Wells, the Time Machine was called was considered a scientific romance. It wasn't called science fiction. So the same thing, no one used that term. So we talk about Mary Shelley being early, Frankenstein being early science fiction. Well, they wouldn't have called it that. They would have called it something else. Yeah. So by 1937, excuse me, there was about 7 major science fiction pulp magazines. Now, these things would, 7 was about the number. Now, the names of them would change because, one would go out of business, a new one would open up, that kind of thing. So there was, that 7 is kind of a rough estimate, but that's about the height, and that's about, sort of the major ones that were put out. The majority of science fiction, though, was still published in general pulp magazines. So they would have, of course, these 7 or so roughly dedicated to science fiction, but there'd be numerous other ones which would be general fiction, and they'd have, maybe one science fiction story, one Western, one crime, one of this, one of that, whatever, right?
Mhm.
So these magazines were the primary way that science fiction was consumed until just about around the end of World War II, and then you start to see anthologies and novels come in primarily, and then later on after that, more into the 50s, you'll see film, TV, and comics as those become more popular. After the 1950s, pulps are replaced by paperback and digest magazines. Have you ever heard of Reader's Digest?
Oh, yes. Yep.
Yeah, and that went in for quite a while, and that's the sort of the idea again. People are, it's a digest, so it's a small, a little bit of a, part of a book maybe, or a short article on something, or so you can learn about, whatever it is, or expand but in a small digestible forms. So
yeah, and often they were edited down a little bit too.
Yeah. So, and this is the time where you see paperbacks, being replaced. So in the 1950s, for example, taking Isaac Asimov, he's in the early pulp magazines, and we talked about Foundation a lot. And the first book of Foundation is set in. It's got 5 main chapters, and each of those appeared as a story in these pulp magazines. I think they were in Amazing Stories for at certain times, and then throughout, and then in the 50s, that's when they're like, hey, take these, put them together. And he released, I think it was 53. I think we talked about it 2 weeks ago. But then they would put it into a novel and then publish it as a paperback novel where you could read all the stories. And the last science fiction pulp magazine was Science Fiction Quarterly, and that ceased production in 1958. Now, there were still other science fiction magazines, but they weren't technically pulps. They would no longer be printed on pulp paper. They would be more, like we would see for, normal magazines, or, the Change. They would become digest magazines, that kind of thing. But there's been, I kept my research to the pulp science fiction time frame. But there was, of course, did you ever read Omni magazine, Cam?
I'm sure I have it one, not regularly, but I'm sure I've read an issue here or there.
It's funny because magazines are pretty much dead right now.
Yeah,
they've ceased to exist. Everything's on the internet, but yeah, Omni magazine would be an example of a magazine that still featured science fiction type stories well into the the 80s and 90s and that sort of thing. So yeah. All right. That is the main part of what I wanted to talk about. I did want to talk about a little bit about pulp characters.
Well, if I may, before you get off on the specifics
you said you wanted to talk about, before we go into that, you wanted to talk about other stuff. All right.
Yeah, just kind of some comments on the things you mentioned here.
While you do that, hold on. I'm going to put this up, and I put this together. This is a whole bunch of slides of some of the pulp amazing stories, covers, and some of them are awesome. So I think
Sure.
as we talk, if I can remember to keep going through these.
You know what?
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, one thing that occurred to me, I just thought of this too late, but our friend Aldous, who was a guest on the Excalibur episode, is a big fan of pulp stuff, as I recall, and he talks about it on his various shows a lot. So we should have probably had him on, but oh well. Yeah. So a few interesting bits here. So you mentioned Hugo Gernsback, right, which was Amazing Stories, and that he I think that was in the 20s, I think, right, 1920s.
Yeah, 26. He started. He started his magazine.
Yeah, just a few interesting tidbits here is the he was a radio nerd, I guess, kind of like our friend Death Angel Shadow, and he was an engineer and produced some tech magazines and stuff. And I from one of the videos I was watching about this, said that he included some of the fiction stuff in the tech magazines as like a feature, so it even, it wasn't specific for that, but it did include fiction in that. So I thought that was kind of cool. And then you might have mentioned that, he started out basically producing older work, like Verne and H.G. Wells and everything, which I know you mentioned, but
no, he didn't. I mean, not that he produced those. I just mentioned that they were not even called science fiction back at the time. They were called different stuff, but
right. But he published the older stories because there just wasn't a bunch of stories available, I guess, at the beginning. But his publicizing or producing this magazine basically brought these people out, because it was like, hey, I'll pay, you can get paid for doing this. And sci-fi, I remember this from my grandfather, who was a physicist himself. He had a very low opinion of science fiction, right? As many people did. Right. Yeah, exactly. It was garbage, basically. My grandfather, I'm sure he wasn't the person that originated this, but he said it's bad science and bad fiction, right? And that's probably a very common claim. But, so it's Gernsback and others basically, open the doors to these things, to these kinds of stories. And from my understanding is that, he was kind of the era of what you would call like adventure sci-fi or science fantasy, things like that. Even though, he popularized the term, perhaps it was very not hard sci-fi, right?
Yeah, and that's mainly how I see pulp sci-fi. It's basically, we're going to talk about, sort of the three main science fiction pulp characters. I mean, there's a lot of them, but I just focused primarily. We can talk about some of the other ones, but primarily we're looking at, the ones that most people would have heard of: Buck Rogers, Flash Gordon, John Carter of Mars. Right. So these are. This is not science fiction that, that Asimov works on, that it's not the harder science fiction. It's kind of, they're basically Westerns in space, adventure fiction, but instead of, Tarzan swinging through the jungle or some cowboy going through, whatever, it's in space and ray guns and that kind of thing. But it's the same kind of style of that.
I think that's broadly, that's absolutely correct. But there were some other interesting tidbits. Again, I don't know. I can't verify this myself. These are just things that I'm, heard about here. Is that Gernsback can also be credited with really helping to establish the first sci-fi fan communities, because which is rooted in letters pages and things where he, basically when someone would write in, they would publish, their address, and then these people started talking to each other, and it's like this proto fandom for sci-fi that came out. And it when you start to look at these things kind of from a little outside of from a higher view, let's say, you could the influence that these magazines had led to many other things that we take for granted today that just didn't exist for sci-fi. There was no sci-fi, obviously no internet or anything. There was no fandom. It was just some weirdo in his garage or whatever reading these weird stories that he was looked down on for enjoying. And then they were able to say, hey, other people do like this is something that's not weird, it's cool. And so I thought that was very interesting.
Let me just before you go on, let me answer PB's question. Huxley wrote Brave New World in 1932 or 33 is when it was published. So it was written before Foundation Book 1. And remember, Asimov gets his start in the late 30s, right before the war. And he writes the Foundation. Like I said, Foundation is a collection of basically five chapters, and he writes one of those over a 5-year period, or however long it was, for things like Amazing Stories, or for Joseph. He worked more for John Campbell, so that was analog science fiction. So he would write for them, and he put his his was called Amazing Stories. So I'm getting it wrong here. So Campbell, Greenspaw started his, but Campbell was Greenspaw was the first, but Campbell was very influential, as I mentioned, in our last show 2 weeks ago. Campbell was influential because he basically said, he kind of elevated science fiction. He said, no, I don't want these crazy, Buck Rogers style stories. I want serious science fiction stories. And that's where, Asimov and those type of writers fit in, because in Asimov's story, it's not about the character of, like a Flash Gordon or a John Carter or anything. The main character, one of the main character is a scientist, but also the world itself is a character, right? This galactic civilization, which the characters are moving through. Huxley wrote before. There's always outliers, right? Like Huxley is writing his story before science fiction, officially. I guess it did exist from 26, but he's writing science fiction. He's writing in a novel form. That's unusual. Most people are writing in these stories, and there is no Foundation Book 1. That doesn't exist until the 50s, where people, they're like, hey, why don't we take some of these amazing stories and put them into a novel? Hey, Asimov, you want to make some real money? Yeah, they'll pay you twice as much. You don't have to do any work either. Take your old stories, slap them together, maybe edit them a little bit, and put them in a book. They'll pay you twice as much. Off you go. Sky Commander in the World of Tomorrow. Yeah, that's one of the other ones. I was going to focus on the other three, but yeah.
Okay. Well,
go ahead. Sorry.
You kind of got into some of the things I was going to talk about there with Campbell.
Okay. Shall we go into Campbell? He's probably, Greensbeck started it, right? But Campbell was probably more influential, at least in making science fiction more serious.
Yeah, it's right. It's like a different stage. So, and see, again, for my personal preference, I kind of like the retro future stuff, which is more the Gernsback.
Oh, really?
Stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
so you like the Flash Gordons and the.
Yeah, I do. It's not to say I don't like some hard sci-fi stuff, but on the other hand, a lot of it I don't. But incidentally, did you mention that the Hugo Awards were named for Hugo Gernsback?
I didn't mention that. No.
Okay, so yes, they are. Which, of course, today are kind of a joke, but at one point, very prestigious.
I did not mention that.
So anyway, that was that era, and then like you were starting to talk about, Campbell came up with the sounding stories that was kind of this other stage where instead of having, like they mentioned in Amazing Stories, they'd have these long expositions about the technology or something, but it was all garbage. None of it was remotely scientific. It was just a bunch of babbling. But kind of fun, can be kind of fun. And you've mentioned before, like the time machine, H.G. Wells. It's like there was didn't talk about how it worked really. It was just that it did, right?
Yeah.
And then
It'd be soft science fiction.
Well, yeah, very soft. And then, like you said, with Campbell, he came in and was, can you say he's the father of hard science fiction, or at least in terms of publication?
Well, I would say that he's. I mean, it's not like he's not demanding scientific explanations of things so much. I mean, the main thing here is, here's a quote. What he wanted, the kind of stories he wanted to encourage in his magazine. So he wanted science fiction writers to pull themselves up out of the pulp mire, which would be more of your Buck Rogers and those
a snobbish attitude, you might say.
It's very snobbish attitude, yes, and start writing intelligently for adults, unquote. So that's where you get the stuff where the science court. And remember, Asimov was a scientist himself, right? He wrote tons of nonfiction as well as fiction novels about biology, etc. So he is sort of trying to. I mean, there's tons of there's tons of these magazines going around, right?
Yeah.
So if you don't want to write for Campbell and you want to write more of a Buck Rogers style thing, you can. It's no problem. But he's trying to sort of make it a little more, intelligent for adults, is what he would say. More snobbish, basically.
Yeah. Well, someone put it a way that made a lot of sense to me. Is they said that he wanted stories that used science that weren't about science. And this kind of gets to what we talk about with our definition of things, right? And it allowed you to get into the speculation of, okay, what does this mean for, here's the scientific thing. In this world, it's real. And how does that impact, the world they live in? And so that's where you get, like we talk about the technological impact on society. It's not about describing necessarily how all those things work scientifically, but it is rooting them in science, in legitimate science, even though it might not be totally realistic. And then it kind of, the way I look at it is you're building a pyramid, right? And so before it was, they've got to explain all this crazy scientific stuff in a story that doesn't necessarily go too far. But now it's like you have the foundation of science and technology kind of being established. Now you can go to the next level of storytelling.
Yeah. Sorry, Gernsback would, he started it, but I mean, Campbell is really the he is the most influential person at this period. And you would probably say within science fiction itself completely, because, he starts this is a key part, and he has great effect on it. Now here, I came across this little story here. So this is, anybody know who Ben Bova is? He's a science fiction writer. So he's one of the successors to Campbell. He wrote this story. Wrote this story about how so back in in the 40s, Campbell encouraged Cleve Cartmill to write a short story called Deadline, which appeared in 1944 in the magazine, a year before the first atomic bomb was detonated. And in it describes, here I quote, describe the basic facts of how to build an atomic bomb. Cartmill and Campbell worked together on the story, drawing their scientific information from papers published in the technical journals before the war. To them, the mechanics of constructing a uranium fission bomb seemed perfectly obvious, unquote. After the story was published, the FBI descended on his office and demanded that the issue be removed from the newsstands.
I ran across this story.
You ran across the story? Campbell convinced them that by removing the magazine, the FBI would be advertising to everyone that such a project existed, and it was aimed at developing nuclear weapons. And then they said, okay, maybe you're right. And so they stopped.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting.
It's kind of funny.
Not a secret. Well, also in as part of that anecdote, I heard that he said, "Yeah, and you're doing this at Los Alamos because they they said that a ton of their subscriptions suddenly moved to Los Alamos.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
They got a whole bunch from there.
Yeah. So if that's true, that's pretty, it's like, oops, I should have thought of that for security reasons. I
Yeah,
guess.
you don't pull it, because then you're basically, because if you're saying, hey, there's this silly magazine that talks about science fiction, then they describe something, you pull it, everyone's going to simply go, what?
Right. So
Snugs, you Ben Bove used to come to your local sci-fi con. Damn, lucky.
Cool.
He's not one of my favorite authors, but I mean, he's he's a giant. He's pretty big in the. I've still read a bunch of his stuff. Yeah. So, all right, sorry, go ahead.
So Campbell kept or basically gave these giants of sci-fi their start.
He made them. Yeah, he got them.
Yeah, it's kind of like the days of records and things where the producer, in this case the publisher, he were the driving force in these things. It's like they had way more influence than today when we think of the authors or the musicians and such as being kind of the masters of their own destiny, and the other people just kind of being more behind the scenes.
Well, but it's still, I mean, it's even still not like that. There's there's all kinds of stories about how who's the famous hip hop producer guy there that everyone, every record he produces becomes a hit. He makes their stuff better.
Sure, the producers are still part of the whole thing. It's just you don't tend to hear about you hear about Taylor Swift, right? Who's Taylor Swift's producers?
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know.
Right. Taylor Swift is, but anyway.
Well, yeah, I wish I didn't know who that was either. But in any case, so then this is, and you mentioned this is the golden era that he created.
Well, it's the pulp era. It's before.
Well, I'm talking about Campbell's era.
Yes.
It's
becoming the start of the golden.
The 30s and 40s, right? So that's interesting. But another, again, I'm not an expert on this. I'm just regurgitating things that I've read or watched about this. They mentioned that Campbell was, he kind
Quincy Jones. Yeah, that's the guy I'm thinking of. Quincy Jones. Sorry. Thanks, Chad.
He basically kind of, after pushing this hard sci-fi thing and all that, then he kind of turned a corner and regressed, because he became really enamored with L. Ron Hubbard, for example.
We're going to go into that.
Well, are we?
Yeah, go ahead.
Snugs, no, come on. You can only go so low with me, man. But so basically, he became a believer in Hubbard's, Dianetics and all that stuff, which will eventually became Scientology. And the more important part of that is that these authors that he pushed in a certain direction surpassed him. They continued on the trajectory of this hard sci-fi, whereas Campbell kind of hit a wall or like I said, regressed. Hey, JT.
Hello, welcome, JT.
So I thought that was kind of interesting, and then of course, all of these videos and things, they have to also talk about that Campbell was a horrible racist and all of his flaws, which
oh yeah,
sure, okay, fine. But I just a note on that. Again, I think it's fine to talk about like H.P. Lovecraft and everything. The guy was a weirdo, right? He had a lot of weird ideas and things, especially from our modern perspective. And it's fine to mention that, but I am just tired of the sniveling of these people that it's like, oh, it's like they have to talk about it as if, the boogeyman will come and get them if they don't talk about how horrible these misogynists and racists were. It's like, yeah, okay. It's called history. It's ugly. It's, get over it. That's not to say that someone should avoid mentioning it because, you want to put these people on a pedestal. You shouldn't do that either. But I'm just tired of this modern, navel gazing and hand wringing BS.
So, okay, so let's get into that. I'll just get a little bit more detailed into that stuff. So, Campbell was interested in these, what we would, call pseudo-scientific type stuff, telepathy, psionic abilities, that kind of stuff, parapsychology.
Right.
He was, he liked these far out ideas. So him and Hubbard in 49, they worked together and they came up with the techniques that Hubbard turned into Dianetics.
Mm-hmm.
Hubbard attempted to get find support in the medical community, and when he didn't get that, of course, Campbell published the earliest forms of Dianetics in Astounding magazine.
Mm-hmm.
He wrote about Hubbard's initial article in Astounding that, quote, "It is, I assure you, in full and absolute sincerity, one of the most important articles ever published." He promoted Campbell's ideas until 52, where they split acrimoniously over the direction of the movement, which I don't know. It doesn't say why or the details, but I would think it would be because Hubbard probably realized, hey, this thing is baloney, but I could make a lot of money on it. And Campbell was still thinking that, this is true. We can do something. There's some Asimov talking about, he says that, around this time, there was a bunch of people who wrote pseudoscientific stuff, and they did it on purpose to get Campbell to buy it. But the best of the writers, including Asimov, retreated from writing for Astounding magazine anymore because of this,
Mm-hmm.
He wanted this crazy stuff. So he says here about Campbell, Asimov says about Campbell championed far out ideas. He pained very many of the men he had trained into doing so, but felt it was his duty to stir up the minds of his readers and force curiosity right out of out to the borderlines. He began a series of editorials in which he championed a societal point of view that could sometimes be described as far right, expressing sympathy for George Wallace.
Wait. Far right. What party was George Wallace?
I don't know. He was a Democrat, wasn't
he? Yes, the far right Democrat Party. Yes, got it.
So that's the kind of. So I mean, I don't. I never met the guy or anything, but it just seems to me that he wanted to push ideas. He wanted to push the bounds of.
Well, does that not make sense to some degree? That the hard science stuff that they were looking at, we're much closer to that being reality today than they were, right? So it was much more esoteric seeming or distant and like, oh boy, that's really this crazy thing to look towards. And as you start to do things like actual space travel and going to the moon and all this stuff, it's like, well, that becomes less alluring, right? Because it's real now. It's not. And so okay, he moves on to the next thing that is less accessible. That makes sense to some degree.
Yeah, there's more interest in more. If anybody wants to go into more detail, there's more detail about is into looking into ESP and all kinds of stuff. But I mean, there is a group of you can make the point that we can't invent something until we at least imagine it, right? Mm-hmm. So there is a theory that says that the future is made by science fiction writers because they come up with all these wacky ideas, and then some scientist goes, "Oh, look at Kirk and his communicator. I wonder if we could make something like that. Let me try." And they get the ideas from them, and they try them, and eventually they succeed, and we get a cell phone or that kind of thing. So yeah. there's that's an interesting theory about how science goes forward, and I think there's some truth to the fact that you can't invent something unless you can imagine it first, right? If you can't think of even this type of thing, then how can you even invent it, right? So yeah, so there are still pretty wacky ideas out there in science fiction. It can be harder to find them, but there are some writers out there that are writing things that are, I occasionally find them and go, well, that's a kind of an interesting idea. That's a little bit different than things were.
Okay, Weatherman brings up excellent. Can you highlight that? He says, the problem is when you make science fiction so steep in facts, it takes the fun out of it. Weatherman is a man after my own heart. That's kind of the issue with the adventure sci-fi versus the hard sci-fi. It does, and again, I'm not nearly as schooled on on what you might call the Silver Age, I guess, of sci-fi, or whatever you call more of the 70s and 80s stuff. That
the drug fueled rage.
No, not that.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah,
I'm talking about more of the really hard sci-fi kind of stuff. It I don't want to read a technical manual, and I don't want to read. Although I'm interested in that kind of stuff. What I'm agreeing with Weatherman, I guess, is a long story short here, is that I do like a little bit of fantastical element, something that is a little wild and a little adventurous, and such, even in my science fiction. I I'm a technical professional, and the last thing I want to do is deal with my my job kind of stuff, when I'm looking for entertainment. So
okay, but I think part of the problem, Cam, is that you are, you're over analyzing hard science fiction. So usually, what hard science fiction does, and in the writers like, Niven is a great example of a hard. I always use him. He's a great example of a hard science fiction writer. What hard science fiction writers generally do is they take, some sort of they're making their stories much more plausible. That's all. They're, instead of saying I have a ray gun and it goes, zoop zoop, or firing a gun at someone which actually has a hand that tries to choke them, which is, you're like, what? They'll take the way physics or science or something works now, and they will just extrapolate to further out to some area that is, not true. Right? Or that may be true, but we don't know if it's true. And they take that and they go with that. So, like Niven's most famous books are probably, he does all the known space stuff, and Ringworld is probably his most well-known property, right? So he's taken the idea that Dyson came up with the Dyson sphere, and he's like, Dyson sphere, that sounds like it's, way too hard to build. Let's just build a ring around the sun. They're so much easier, right? And he comes up with material that he calls scrinth, which is very, very tough and durable, that could be able to do that. It doesn't exist, right? He comes up with these various it can be put into wires that are that would slice, if you go through it, it'll slice you in half completely, but they're tough and they can hold up these panels that will block out the sun and move along, et cetera, et cetera. But James, I think, says it here, rooted in reality, but it's not real. You're taking some sort of principle of physics, and then you're taking it beyond what we know can happen. So, it's not really, they're not really technical manuals. They don't, they might explain a little bit about how it works, but I'm not a super technical guy, but I read Niven stuff and I enjoy it. I enjoy the fact that it's more grounded, in somewhat into a reality, or they don't hand wave and say, he'll describe, something about the materials and how they, like, you're sitting there going, well, how could they make this giant ring world? Oh, well, they would do it like this, and it sounds plausible. I mean, it's nothing that we can do, but yeah.
Yeah, well, okay. So I vary on this as within this as well. Snugs said, "What what do I think of The Martian?" Okay, that I saw the
movie, right?
Yeah, I saw the movie. I didn't read it, but I thought it was a pretty good movie, and I like there's a lot of it's pretty fantastical if you think about it, given that our pathetic state of space travel right now. But it's certainly a straight line from where we are in terms of technology. But I also
that's a very close, like, there's science fiction where you look, I'm going to write a hard science fiction, I'm going to go 10 years out, which would be actually much harder to do than to go 100, 200, 1,000, 10,000 years out, right?
Sure. A quick note for PB. No, I'm not attacking anybody or their preferences for what they like. It's just there's certain things I don't like, and I'm vocal about my opinions. But
it's my job to attack people for
right.
not having the right opinion.
That's right. but The Martian, I have to admit, maybe I'm contradicting myself here a little bit, but it did annoy me that they're depicting this sandstorm, a very, very aggressive sandstorm that, by my understanding, doesn't exist on Mars. It's just there isn't enough atmosphere to support that.
Oh, really? Oh,
Yeah, it was very unrealistic in that respect.
I didn't pay enough attention to the movie.
Well, maybe you're not so scientifically minded after all.
I am not as
Okay.
scientific. Remember, I'm a history major. Remember?
Oh, okay. Well,
Right.
So that
History of
kind of
science
did,
fiction.
it did, I'm sitting there going, I don't think this is right. So it took me out of the story because of that, but the reason why is, and why I don't think this is a contradiction for myself, is it's masquerading as hard sci-fi, realistic sci-fi. Let me forget the word hard or soft. It's masquerading as being realistic when it's making fundamental flaws.
Yeah.
And then you
and things we know that are true too, right? We do
Right.
know that, like, Niven will write and he'll make up something, but it won't be, it could be true, but he won't take it and go, this is, we already know this isn't true. Let me just, they don't usually do that. But all right.
So Snugs hates the book. Curious to hear why that is. But and then
that's The Martian, the book The Martian. Yeah. I didn't read it.
And then what was that other movie? Was it Gravity? Was that the one with Sandra Bullock?
Yeah.
See, that movie pissed me off too. I remember watching it and like, this is garbage. I was just,
I like that. It looks cool.
Yeah, maybe, but it just bugged me just watching this stuff. I'm like, this is not at all realistic. Again, really? I guess that's the thing. It's within
it was unrealistic. It was cool. The shots were cool.
Yeah, but a lot of problems with the physics in there, I think. But
well, yeah.
So the problem is, I guess for me, is within the presentation, if it's matching its own claims is what bothers me. Whereas, Snugs, it was Matt Damon, right? So, maybe that was good casting,
right.
Being insufferable. But again, like a pulp story where it's like, oh, we're going to Venus and we're walking around on Venus. I have absolutely no problem with that, right? But because it's not trying to be hard sci-fi, it's like I said, these adventure things. But if it's like, oh, we're hard sci-fi, and then they go and they're walking around on Venus, then I'm going to be like, this sucks. Did I like Back to the Future? Yeah, I did. I'm not a huge fan. It's not like a foundational thing for me from my younger childhood or anything like that, but they were fine. Sorry, there's a lot of good chats going on here. Let's see.
I like Back to the Future. It's a good fun movie. My kids showed my kids there. Yeah. Is it true the way that time travel works? No, not really. But anyway.
Yeah. So I guess that like other people, PB and Weatherman have been discussing here, it's, a lot of it's just preference, and so certain things set me off and I really dislike it. And other things don't. It's, I'm maybe famously for this show, at least, I really come down on Firefly. I think it's utter garbage. And a lot of that is because it doesn't do the basic work of being sci-fi. It's just all arm waving and just here it is. And believe what I tell you, because I'm trying to tell you that you're supposed to feel this way. That's Joss Whedon in a nutshell, what he's degraded into, I think, as a writer. But that's,
I would say Firefly would fit more under this sort of the general definition of pulp style.
Yeah, but right? Crap pulp.
Well, whether you like it or not, that's that's a personal preference. But it's there's some aspects of it that it's not completely pulp. They're in their ship, and it takes time to get from point A to point B. But there is kind of some questions about the whole. They don't spend much time.
See, the thing about Firefly is it what annoys me so much, again, not that it's fantastical or whatever, but it's like it would have taken so little to build that foundation to where the things were more credible. And it's just like, nah, I don't need to, because I'm Joss Whedon, and I, at that point in his career, that was just the attitude he had. It's like, nah, I'm not even gonna. I'm too good for that. I'm not gonna do the little bit of work that it would take to bring this to a better level.
I mean, a really good writer could work on that and come up with plausible reasons as to why, you know, some planets in this solar system are highly technologically advanced, and others are, you know, set back in a 1800s, you know,
right.
And that could be quite interesting.
Yeah, and some people say, "Oh, well, they did this or that," and it's like, but it didn't get to the level of credibility for me. I think it failed at that, and could have been credible. That's really what annoys me, is something that could be good and isn't. Another example.
Okay, hold on though. All right, sorry. Go ahead. You go with your example.
I was going to say an example on the good side of that, and I'm not an expert on this at all, is The Expanse, where they had. I didn't read the books, but I did watch some of the show where they talked about how their propulsion systems, you know, there was some kind of discovery that made the propulsion systems like wildly more efficient.
Fusion.
Right. So they could, you know, it's like, oh, okay, they put that bit in there, and it's like that does a lot of work to give credibility to the whole story, right? And as such, not just that, but other things, that series is held up as kind of a paragon of good sci-fi, you know, good modern sci-fi.
Yeah, I mean, I read all the books of The Expanse and watched the show as well. I recommend the books, except for the last two books, 8 and 9, which are not bad, but they take place 30 years after, you know, the main storyline, and you know, the characters are all old and decrepit and are like, oh, my bones hurt, and they go to do stuff. But if you want to find out how the series ends and you like an ending to your thing, I found it a little bit depressing to watch. What's his name? You know, hobble about and complain about how old he is. But there's a reason why they wanted to push it back 30 years. They needed that time. Fusion. If Expanse uses fusion containment for propulsion and ship power. Yeah, they. I mean, they didn't hand wave it, but they did say, "Oh, there's this new sort of discovery that makes, you know, you're able to do that." And it was very realistic. With, you know, the good thing about the TV show, especially, is that, you know, they took the time to do that. You see the people,
right? Yeah, they portrayed that in an episode.
They're floating through the ship, and they're, you know, going from point A to point B and stuff. So they did a big job of doing that.
They did a flashback with the creation of that propulsion system, though, as I recall. They had, you know, the guy, he was like testing the thing, and he ended up dying, I think, because it worked too well or whatever.
He dies because he doesn't expect to. It's a very short. Yeah, he's trying, like, you know, he's been trying, you know, thousands and thousands of mixtures to try to get it right or something.
Mm-hmm.
And he tests this one and he sets himself up. He doesn't, like, he's supposed to be on the button to be able to turn it off right away.
Right.
But
the acceleration was too much.
He doesn't set himself up right. He doesn't properly get himself seated before he starts it. So he's like, oh shit, now I'm accelerating. Now I can't move because I'm going too fast.
Right.
And I'm just going to keep accelerating until, you know, no one will be able to get to me.
Right.
But he does signal back and say, you know, die of starvation before anybody, because no one else has this, and he's accelerating, you know, very, very much faster than anybody else. And so he's like, knows he's going to die, but he can send the, you know, the information that gets back, and they're like, oh yeah, so they can, you know, can be replicated. But it was his stupidity that killed him.
Yeah, but the point is, they took the time in that story to build that part of the foundation, right?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't think it was that important, to be honest. You know, for the world, like, I don't really. I mean, they have this, you know, fusion. Yeah, they have the fusion containment, and they can get their power. You know, it's fusion. It seems reasonable to me. You know, fairly reasonable. But yeah, that's fine. You can you can do that as well if you want. Yeah, I mean, I wanted to like Firefly, and I could have liked it better, but there were some questions. And, you know, if they had gotten more than a season, they might have been able to, you know, iron the wrinkles out and been a little bit more, you know.
Yeah, well, but as I said before, the network screwed it up too. They put it in the wrong order and all that crap.
Coulda, woulda, shoulda.
My sincere wish was that it would have been done on its own terms, so it could have failed on its own terms. I wouldn't have to listen to people cry about how it's the greatest thing that we've missed in the last 30 years or whatever.
It does end up on people's list of shows that should have got more seasons, but there are science fiction shows I think that are better than that should have got more seasons, which I think we talked about.
Okay, so I've taken us on quite a few tangents here. You want to direct us back to?
No, not really.
Or put up a poll and see how people are angry at me having done that. You like to do that,
right? Put a 1 in the chat if you're angry at Cam.
Snugs doesn't count.
Yeah, so after the golden, the pulp age, which kind of it is not really the pulp age. It kind of straddles the golden age, and it's not really an age in its own.
Well, the golden age, I would say, is part of the pulp age.
It is. Yeah. So the golden age, and just a reminder, the new wave is what we call it afterwards, and then it is, it's sort of the cyberpunk age, which is the kind of the 80s, and then who knows what we're going to call this next age.
My friends, you scumbags.
Oh, all right. Right on. Death Angel Shadow is mad at you. Snugs is mad at you. All right. All right, good. Weatherman says 0. All right. So no.
Thank you, Weatherman.
All right. Okay. So shall we move on to we want to talk about some is there anything else you want to talk about in this general? Because I was going to direct the conversation towards sci-fi pulp characters.
I think that pretty much covers it. There is the connection with Lovecraft and everything, but we've talked about that before, and it's kind of this specific sci-fi-ish thing. So I think we're good. Oh, you know what? I just would. I guess the last note on this in general is, without this early pulp era, I don't think you'd have things like Star Wars, for example. And that's, it's kind of it's not a direct line because the golden age is not what Star Wars is, but it does, reach back and has inspiration in that, that earlier era. So, as a former Star Wars fan, I suppose, I'm very glad for that stuff. And maybe that's why I have a lot of fondness for it, because I was raised on Star Wars, and it does reflect that part of the pulp era that I really do like.
All right. Okay. So let's talk about, let's just quickly, we'll talk a little bit about, what are, Cam, what are pulp era characters for you? Not necessarily science fiction ones, but just general pulp era characters. Would you name some off if you can? And in the chat too, if you want in the chat, shout them out in the chat.
Doc Savage, Tarzan.
Doc Savage, yes, excellent, good one.
Yeah, I mean, Flash Gordon, the ones that we're going to talk that are sci-fi ish are also in there. I'd say Lone Ranger. Of course, there's all the detective kinds of stories. Philip Marlowe.
Yeah, that's a good one. Indiana Jones could be considered. He's a pulp character. He's not in the pulp time. Doc Savage, Tarzan. Let me switch here. A couple. Let me just name off a bunch of them. Zorro, Conan, Sam Spade, Philip Marlowe, which we did more detective-oriented ones, of course.
Let me mention Johnny Dollar. Was one of my favorites.
Johnny Dollar, I don't know him. Krull, which is kind of an early version of Conan. The Black Bat. I'm just gonna mention some of them, not all of them. Avenger, which was a fictional character from the pulp magazines in the late 30s and early 40s. Agent 13, Doc Savage you mentioned. So those are the kind of the Green Llama. don't know if you heard about him, but he's kind of it's kind of a little bit of a weird one. Yeah, I said Conan already. All right, the Phantom. Yes, that's a good one. Gort. I don't know Gort very well. I've heard of Gort. That's a robot, I think. The Shadow, John Carpenter. The Hardboiled Detectives. That's Sam Spade and Philip Marlowe are the most well-known ones. The Phantom. Yeah. All right. Excellent. Okay, those are good. So those are the kind of pulp characters we're thinking about now. These pulp characters, a lot of effect on some modern characters. Can you think of any modern, well-known characters that might be influenced from pulp magazines? And
Han Solo.
I'm going to say, Han Solo. I'm going to say DC. I'll give you a hint.
DC.
No.
Mm-mm.
You don't know what I mean. Batman. A lot of reflections of Batman from Zorro and from the Shadow, right? Those two pulp characters, great influence on Batman.
Incidentally, Zorro was the show that little Bruce Wayne was seeing on the night his parents were killed.
Exactly, and there's a reason for that because it's a throwback. It's a hey, we recognize that Batman, that Zorro is a great effect on Batman, right? Because they're both masked vigilantes. The Zorro is the son of a murdered aristocrat who dons a black mask and battles against the corrupt forces of the state. Does that sound like anybody that you know?
A little bit.
Yeah, and that's exactly why they're often seen. You see Zorro. They want to watch Zorro. That's a big kickback to that. And of course, the Shadow has a little bit of as well on the thing. Superman. A lot to Doc Savage, right? Because Doc Savage in the pulp he's the Ubermensch, right? Which is exactly what classic Superman is portrayed as, right? The Ubermensch. He's the peak of human physical and intellectual development, and that's the same as Doc Savage. You've got Adam Strange. Have you heard it? You've heard of him?
I love Adam Strange.
A lot back to John Carter, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of
I should say I love it
between those two.
I love Adam Strange, not written by Tom King.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Cisco Kid.
That's a Western. I don't know about that one. I don't know too much about the Green Llama. Ranger, though. Yeah, the Green Llama was new to me, but apparently him and the Spectre share a lot of similarities. But a lot of it, some of them are kind of, they both wear green hoods and that kind of stuff. But those are the kind of the Fantastic Four also takes stuff from Doc Savage. And when you talk about Doc Savage, he had a group of characters, 5 characters that he hung around with, and the Fantastic Four have their 4. Doc Savage has a lot of scientific quests with the Fabulous 5. That's what his group was called. So there's lots of, there's a little bit of some cross reference there. The Black Bat, I mentioned him. He's a pulp fiction hero. He's got a lot in. There's a little bit to the, Batman, but not really. I think Batman, they sued the Black Bat, but the lawsuit was dismissed. But the Black Bat, very similar to Daredevil, right? The Black Bat he's very similar in that sense. Flying around like a bat, blinded, kind of like Daredevil is. So lots of these pulp characters lots of crossover with some of the superheroes, which we see. Okay, that's a little bit off topic, but just to give you an idea, trying to give the audience an idea of what we're talking about when we talk about pulp characters. Is there any? Did I miss anything? Do I need to? Did I get that across, Cam? Keep me honest here.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. All right. Okay. So we want to talk about our main. Let me just switch over here. And we'll talk about our main 3 characters. This is the kind of the purpose of the show. The sort of the most 3 well-known pulp science fiction characters. Of course, you recognize these people, Cam?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know who this first guy is?
Yeah, it's Gil Gerard.
Buck Rogers, Flash Gordon, and of course John Carter of Mars. Now, I use the movie or TV versions of them. They're not necessarily exactly how they look, but hey, I need pictures. And
I've seen all of these in their original presentation.
He's worked out good. All right, so let's talk about these guys.
Okay,
who do you want to talk about first?
Well, let's start with Buck Rogers.
Buck Rogers. All right, we can start with him. Hold on a second. Let me get myself sorted out here. All right, Buck Rogers. I'm going to go back to this and keep cycling through these. We're halfway through these amazing stories. Some of them are pretty cool, so I like to do that. You don't know who the third guy is? It's John Carter of Mars from the John Carter movie. All right, Buck Rogers.
Literally, no one saw it.
Yeah.
No one saw the movie but me.
It wasn't that bad a movie.
I didn't say it was bad. I said it was a huge flop.
Yeah, it was a flop. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. What do you want to tell me about Buck Rogers?
You know what? Here's the thing. I realized I haven't consumed maybe any Buck Rogers except for the TV show from the 70s, 80s.
Yeah.
I mean, I probably have read something about Buck Rogers, but very little. And I kind of feel bad about that. I would like to read more. I'm more familiar with Flash Gordon, but I guess there was no publications or anything that really came by in my I just missed it for the most part. So
let's give a little background about Buck Rogers. So obviously a science fiction adventure hero, right? And that's the kind of adventure, that kind of aspect of it is what. So January 7th, 1929, it first appeared in American newspapers. I mean, it's almost impossible to talk about all of it, but it's been international newspapers since then, books, multiple media, radio, serial film, television series, all kinds of these type of things. It's almost and it's pretty much been within the popular culture since that time, 29, until probably the I don't know how many I'd have to look at. I'm not sure about how many comic books have they been doing with Buck Rogers lately, but at least until the 70s when the movie the TV show came out, it was a kind of a regular sort of thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
You'd see,
Well, in terms of the comics, there is one from 10 or 15 years ago that was done by Howard Chaykin that I'm trying to get a hold of, but it's kind of it does have a collected edition, but it's expensive and or hard to find, so I haven't gotten one yet.
Yeah, I have lists up to, writer's credits up to the 67. Buck Rogers is kind of the first. He's told that he inspired the numerous imitators, including Flash Gordon. Brick Bradford was another one. Don Dixon and the Hidden Empire. Speed Spaulding. And probably John Carter of Mars. Well, not John Carter of Mars, because he was written in 1911, but it probably inspired them to go, hey, we should make a comic of this John Carter of Mars. So yeah, Buck Rogers is kind of the beginning of the whole deal.
Yeah.
Go ahead. You want to, Buck Rogers' original story?
Well, he does end up 500 years in the future. It was some sort of, it was a suspended animation thing, right? But it wasn't in space. I think it was.
Oh, okay, but no, the original. You're talking about I think from the TV story. So the original, he's a miner and he's trapped in a mine somehow for 500 years.
Yeah, that's what I said.
I thought you said in space or something. But
no, the original was not in space.
Yeah.
But he still ended up 500 years in the future.
Yes. So all that's true. And then he helps. He comes out and he helps Americans fight some sort of war. Yeah. So very similar to what we're used to in the TV show, but it's kind of funny. He's a miner, right? He starts out as a miner. Yeah. So so many comic books.
Well, but he was a pilot still, right? He was a World War I pilot or something.
I don't know about that. Let me see if I can. I thought he was just a miner, but maybe he had been a pilot in the war and then he came back to be a miner. Lots of guys did that after the. But that's his kind of his story. He's comes out and then he helps. But it's very typical swashbuckling adventures, that kind of thing.
Okay, well here this is just from the Wikipedia. It says it talks about.
He's an astronaut in the TV show, but not originally in 1929. Death Inch Shuttle. Go ahead.
They have a little blurb. It says, I guess this is quoting from it. It says, I was 20 years old when they stopped the World War and mustered me out of service. I got a job surveying the lower levels of abandoned mine near Pittsburgh, in which the atmosphere had a peculiar pungent tang and the crumbling rock glowed strangely. I was examining it when suddenly the roof behind me caved in, and that's when he ends up in the future.
Yep. Mine inspector, trapped in a mine. Helps a group of oppressed Americans win a futuristic war. So sci-fi. He was one of the first science fiction radio shows. 30s movie series starring Buster Crabbe, as someone mentioned Buster Crabbe, who also, I guess, was also Flash Gordon.
Yep.
I didn't know that. TV series in the late 70s for 2 seasons. They've been recently talking about bringing him back. Have you heard anything about?
I have heard a few things. Yeah, Jason. I think Jason was talking about it, wasn't he?
Jason was mentioning it. Yeah, that they're talking about bringing it back. I haven't heard, and I'm afraid that they're going to ruin it like they ruin everything. But do you remember watching your Looney Tunes, Cam, back in the day?
Yeah.
Do you remember any particular Daffy Duck character that might be interesting and related to Duck Dodgers in the 24th and a half century?
Oh, sure.
Yeah. So, the true mark of pop culture relevancy is to be parodied by Looney Tunes, right? So Duck Dodgers, of course, is a direct ripoff of Buck Rogers. Okay. All right. So we want to move on to our next.
Well, I have an interesting.
More? Okay. Just give us some more about.
It's kind of a side story, but it is about Buck Rogers. So the Dilly family were the publishers of Buck Rogers, and a guy named Flint Dilly was involved with the G.I. Joe cartoon. And a lot of other things back in the day. And his sister was some named Lorraine Williams, which Death Angel Shadow's ears probably just started burning there because she is the person who ousted Gary Gygax from TSR. Her Flint Dilly was somehow involved with Gary in regards to the Dungeons & Dragons cartoon when he was out in L.A., and he introduced him to his sister. Gary brought her in this company. She got rid of him. So
just like a woman.
Yeah, but now
can't trust them; they're sneaky.
Right. One of the things that they were doing at TSR at that time was a role-playing game. So TSR put out a role-playing, Buck Rogers role-playing system, and her family owned this, so it was a little bit, insider action there, I guess. But that might be oddly enough, I don't remember that. I think I remember seeing an advertisement for that game, and I probably have it on the back of a comic from that era, but I never had any of it, and I've never actually seen any of the product in person. But I think they actually produced modules in like a comic book format or something. It was kind of an interesting thing. So I'd like to actually get a hold of some of that and maybe review it at some point. But I don't know. It might be hard to find. So just an interesting side note.
All right. A little bit more about just adding to your it says TSR published a 10-issue series based on their Buck Rogers XXVC, which would be 25th century, 1990 to 91. So that's when they put it out there. Comic books. There was a monthly comic books in 2009 by Dynamite Entertainment. 13 issues, and plus an annual collected into two trade paperbacks. 2012, they announced a new comic book.
That's the Chaikin one, right?
Yeah, Chaikin, Buck Rogers Volume 1. And supposedly in 2025, comic book series, Buck Rogers 2425, reimagining his adventures in the 21st century, published by Array Comics. But I got nothing else on that. And that's, this year. I don't know. Have you seen any of those in your trips to the comic book store?
No, but I actually did see some Flash Gordon comics. Very, very few of them. They weren't a lot on the shelf, but that Michael had talked about when he put a note in the Discord, I think, about that. They're on issue 12 or 13 or something like that. I have the first one. Well, anyway, we'll talk about that when we get to Flash. But no Buck Rogers comics lately that I've seen.
Okay. All right. Well, that's supposedly there's a 2025 something out there, but I haven't seen either. Of course, I'm banned from my local comic book store, so I might not. Maybe that's the reason. Yeah. Anyway, okay. So let's move on to Flash Gordon.
Okay.
Flash. Okay. So as I first published, copying off Buck Rogers a little bit, January 7th, 1934. First prompt published in a comic strip. Everything new is everything old is new again. So Buck Rogers at the time is very commercially successful, and it's spawning novelizations and children's toys. So these other comic book king features decides, hey, we can't let these guys get all the money. We need our own Buck Rogers style or something like that. They tried to buy the John Carter of Mars rights from Edgar Rice Burroughs, but no, screw you. We didn't give you enough money or whatever. So they decide to do Flash Gordon, which is based on a Philip Wiley novel, When Worlds Collide. The themes of approaching a planet threatening the Earth, athletic hero's girlfriend, and science traveling to the new planet by rocket. And they adopted that, and they used it for the show Flash Gordon. Ran daily as a Sunday ran weekly as a Sunday strip from 1934 until 2003. And daily strips in the 40s from 40 to 44 and 51 to 92. Yeah. And so it's almost continuously. They did reprints from 2003 until 2023. And it was relaunched with a new daily and Sunday strip. Have you seen any of these daily strips? I mean, I used to read them all the time. I remember reading Spider-Man as I was growing up all the time. I'm like, oh, the newspaper's here. Check the funny pages, Spider-Man. But
Yeah, I remember. Well, I used to follow the Star Wars. There was a Star Wars one back in the day, and there were some other ones that I followed for periods of time. But I never stuck with them for too long.
yeah, who reads daily? I mean, everything's on the web, right?
Well, now.
Yeah, I mean, even for the last 15, 20 years, I mean, you can't get a thing anymore. But, yeah. So, yeah, Flash Gordon. Anything you want to add to Flash Gordon?
We kind of talked about that quite a bit. Oh, okay. Hold on. I just found something.
We did watch a movie about him.
Yeah, indeed. Well, I mentioned before the cartoon from the 79 to 82, I think, by Filmation, which I recommend. And like I said, I have read some Flash Gordon comics. I have a few. I'm pretty sure I have the first issue of that one that Michael was talking about, the more recent one that's still ongoing.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
He seemed to be as popular, or even maybe more so than Buck Rogers, in a sense.
It seems like it to me. In fact, at one point I was confused. I thought that Flash Gordon was before Buck Rogers, but
No.
Yeah.
So they're suggesting here that his all-American good looks help. He apply. He has that all-American sort of thing, makes him a little more popular. But yes, definitely intended to compete with Buck Rogers, who was also enormously popular. He's been in various media, of course, live action, animated, movie serials, and of course the 1980 film adaptation, which we watched last week, was not very popular when it was released, but it's kind of a cult classic now. So yeah, and there was a comic book revival of him by Dynamite in 2012 as well.
I'm pretty sure I have some of those as well.
Yeah. So perhaps not the first, but perhaps more popular than Buck Rogers. Yeah.
I just did a quick search. You can get that Buck Rogers TSR game on eBay, used at least. So,
yeah. There, the critics raved about Flash Gordon as being one of the, this is back in the adventure days, back in the 30s when it was first. Best illustrated and most influential of American adventure comic strips. Yeah, so they put a little more effort into it. Flash Gordon and Buck Rogers, big influence on science fiction comic strips that came afterwards as well. Yeah. And of course, influence on early superhero characters like Superman. If you look at some of the pictures of Flash Gordon, and from the initial, I don't have one ready to go. But if you look, it's somewhat similar. The tight suit, the red, somewhat influenced. I think influenced Superman as well.
Cool.
Right. So lots of serials. We're talking about Buster. Who was talking about Buster Crab? Weatherman. Someone was talking about Buster Crab. 3 film serials in the 30s. 36 Flash Gordon. 38 Flash Gordon Strip to Mars. 1940 Flash Gordon Conquers the Universe. So Buster Crab was in all 3 of those. And yeah, so they would be very big in the day. Flash Gordon remains copyrighted, but the compilation made of the second serial and third serial are public domain if anybody wants to get on that and do something with that. So the character is still copyrighted, but yeah. Oh, hey, did you know this? Sam J. Jones, who was Flash Gordon.
Yeah.
Did you know that he's a former Playgirl centerfold? Did you know that?
No.
Jeez. I didn't know that before. Oh, man.
I'm sure you'll be researching that, right?
So they've been, I think we talked about this last week. They've been, since 2014, 20th Century Fox have been working on a Flash Gordon reboot. Nothing on that. An animated film with guess who writing and directing?
Mm.
Taika Waititi.
Oh boy.
I don't know what that sounds like.
Well, I do.
You know, I give hey, great for the guy to be, doing that stuff. But yeah, I don't know if did Flash Gordon influence the look of the Rocketeer? I'm not sure. I don't know too much about the Rocketeer. He was, of course, a pulp, one of the pulp guys that I mentioned. But I don't know, the details of the about the character. His origin and stuff. I got stuff on. Are you looking that up, Cam?
I'm sorry, looking up.
You're not looking it up.
No.
I got. No. Oh, here we go. Here's the run. All right. No, that's not right. The Rocketeer is a person who uses rockets. No. Yeah. Also, a Pulp Fiction comic book superhero first appeared in 1982 as a homage to the Saturday matinee serial heroes from the 30s and 50s. So I didn't know. He's 1982. That's the earliest of him? I was sure that he was earlier than that. So they basically copied him. It looks like. He first appeared in 1982. Where did he appear in? The comic book doesn't say where he published in Pacific Comics. So it was a comic book. And then, of course, 1991 is the Disney film of The Rocketeer. So, yeah. So 82, that's pretty good. 9 years to get your own movie. Yeah. So 1981, the artist is approached by Pacific guys who co-founded Pacific Comics. They want him to write for him. Yeah, they write The Rocketeer. So there you go. 1982, March, April. All right. Forbidden Planet. I think that was one of the lists we have done, but yeah. Okay. All right. Shall we move on? We're getting close to the end of the show, I think. Oh, it's getting a little long.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was a nod. Yeah, Weatherman's right. He's a nod to the old Pulp Fiction. They make him like the thing. Yeah. Let's move on to John Carter of Mars, who I kind of know a little bit less so than the other guys. But yeah.
Yeah, I'm afraid I don't know all that much about it either. Like I said, I did see the movie, the Disney movie from whenever that was. I didn't dislike it, but I don't remember it thrilling me either.
No, it wasn't money. It wasn't very. Most people, that know him because of the film. So Edgar Wright's, lots of lots of story. Edgar Rice Burroughs in the 1910s wrote a story about John Carter's story. He's a Civil War veteran, a Virginian who fought for the Confederates.
Racist.
He's transported to Mars, which they call Barsoom, which is what the locals call it, and he engages in various pulp-style adventures. He is rumored to be in the story. He is originally immortal, and but somehow he appears as like a 30-year-old man, and he's he can't remember anything past what happened to him before that. So he is just fighting in wars and doing whatever, but he can't remember his origin or anything like that. So yeah. I believe that Burroughs wrote John Carter first, but it didn't really take off. And once Tarzan became big, in large part, because of the films that they made of him, of his novels, then Carter became a little bit more well known, and Burroughs was able to profit from that. So yeah, Virginia soldier, a veteran. He's transported to Mars. He fights various mythological beasts on Mars, alien armies, all kinds of stuff. 1911. Appeared in lots of novels, short stories, comic books, television shows, and films, including the last one, which was the 2012 film John Carter. Did you? That's not the one that I remember, is it? 2012 seems too recent. I thought there was another one before that we saw, but I guess it's the one I got in the picture and everything. But
yeah.
So yeah, numerous series. There's Burroughs has written lots of stuff. The Gods of Mars, The Warlords of Mars, Swords of Mars, all kinds of stories about with John Carter. Also, they did, they've done. He wrote a bunch of stuff, in that same universe, not specifically about John Carter. Synthetic Men of Mars, all kinds of stuff. Yeah. So Carter, he can't remember his childhood. He's always 30 years old. He's many generations known as Uncle Jack. He always lives to see people grow old and die while he remains young. He's basically a Southern gentleman. He's supposed to be very, very courteous towards people. Yeah. Served as a captain in the American Civil War. Struck it rich finding gold in Arizona, and then when hiding from Apaches in the cave, he appeared to die, leaving his inanimate body behind. He's mysteriously transported by a form of astral projection to Mars. Finds himself re-embodied in a form identical to his earthly one. Accustomed to the greater gravity of Earth, he finds himself much more stronger and agile than the Martians, and continues to have various pulp-style adventures. So he's in comics, numerous comics. What is the most recent? There's a French comic in 2003. In that world, and of course, Carter's physical appearance in comics is varied, but he's a frequent character in My Favorite Artist. You know who that is, Cam?
No.
Frank Frazetta. Did all, does the great Conan stuff, and does some great thing. Incidentally, a little bit of a side note here. Another of my favorite authors, Philip Jose Farmer. One of the things he likes to do is take old characters and do things. So it's not his most well-known series, but Farmer did a number of books where he has Tarzan fight Doc Savage, and they get together and fight some sort of conspiracy. So he likes to take these old pulp heroes and write them as pulp in science fiction and in a sort of a more modern, well, sometimes a modern setting, sometimes not. But that was my first real exposure to these. When I was a kid, with these pulp. Tarzan, everyone knew who Tarzan was, but in writing was through Philip Jose Farmer, who wrote. I read most of his other stuff, and I said, "Hey, what's this book?" And he's got Doc Savage doing stuff, Tarzan, running around doing all kinds of things. So he took these characters and adapted them to his own little world, and put them in there. Oh, they're even talking about him. Oh, I said I was about to talk about him. They're Carter is found in John Carter. Was he in Alan Moore's League of Extraordinary Gentlemen?
I don't think he was in the original one.
I don't think it's the movie.
If there were some. No. I mean the. No, at least not in the first comic series. I don't think he was.
Oh, one of the early protagonists in Heinlein's The Number of the Beast is Captain Zebediah John Carter, whose lover becomes his wife, Deja Thoris Dee Dee Burroughs Carter.
Wait a minute, what was this in?
One of the early protagonists in Heinlein's The Number of the Beast.
Oh.
The similarity of the names is noted in the novel. I don't remember that, but I'll have to read it again. So these are, Philip Jose Farmer, as I was mentioned, he writes novels specifically about these characters and puts them in his novels. But he does have nods to them in some other novels, like his World of Tears. One of the moons circling is called Barsoom. That kind of stuff. But, it's really, he does, they're not mentioning here, but he does a lot more. He's got, like I said, specific books that talk about Doc Savage and show the characters. These pulp characters. He loved those guys. Wrote various books about them. Yeah.
Okay.
Barsoom, TTRPG coming. Really? Oh, I didn't know that. John Carter series. Yeah, great. Okay. All right. Well, I'm coming near the end. We're hitting 2 hours cap. Jeez. We're coming to the end of what I wanted to talk about. I just wanted to mention those 3 and give people a little backstory. I thought that John Carter movie was a lot earlier than 2012. I did like the woman who played Deja Thoris. I thought she was good. Role-playing game. Jeff will like this. In 1978, Heritage Models did a John Carter role-playing game in that time. Of course, films in the 30s, the usual. These things are very, very all over the place, like all kinds of adapted in serials in the 30s and stuff. All 3 of them.
It certainly is time to end the show, but just a few things that we didn't talk about. Maybe we can talk about in another episode, or at least we didn't talk about it to any length, is how radio programs mesh with the pulp era, because many sci-fi radio shows like X-1, one of my favorites, is basically adapting a lot of these pulp era stories. And that's a topic worth delving into on its own.
Yeah, I think I mentioned that some of them were into radios. I didn't focus on those specifically, but so all these times, like, these are big properties. These are the Star Wars of their era. They're being adapted into anything that they can be adapted into. So you're going to have, these movie serials, television serials, these, radio shows, any way that they can adapt them. All right. All right. Good. I think we covered it. We just wanted to cover a little bit about the pulp era and how it affected. It's really the start. 1926, 29. This is the really beginning of science fiction as a thing. Before that, it doesn't really exist, and it's definitely not called science fiction. It exists, but these stories are called, oh yeah, this is just a crazy scientific romance story. Yeah.
Well, I think that I'd go farther than what you're indicating and say that I'd say it is the foundation of modern sci-fi entirely, and quite a ways deep into it. It developed it into like we were talking about, with Campbell and everything, into the hard sci-fi and everything, and taking it from this kind of proto sci-fi into, full blown sci-fi. So I think you can't discount the importance of this.
Yeah, it is the start. I think the golden age really cemented it, but because it took it from a little bit more of these sort of adventure stories into more of real science fiction stories. But this is the beginning of the era, and there's overlap between those two things going on at the same time. You've got all these various pulp style science fiction stories and radio series and TV serials and comic strips and whatever. And then you've also got the John Campbells and the more cerebral, focusing a little more on the science type stories in Amazing Magazine, that kind of thing. All right. Okay. All right. So I think, it's getting late, but you know what? I will go and I'll hop into the Discord if anybody wants to say hello after the show. So we have the Discord. If you want to go onto the Discord server after the show, I'll be there for a little bit. And Sci-Fi Snob, Jeff posted it at the beginning of the show. There's the after party voice server, which I hop into. And I want to remind everybody for this show, the Toplofty Lounge, our next, I have the poll up in the Toplofty Lounge chat. What movie are we going to do for next movie night in a couple weeks? The two options are Damnation Alley from 1977. That's the George Peppard one. You remember that one, Ken?
Vaguely.
They're in a giant, I guess it's not giant, but it's pretty big, sort of armored vehicle, and they're driving around the wasteland of America after a nuclear war or something.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember anything about it, but I did see it. And that one's that one, and between that one or Planet of the Apes, the 1967 version of Planet of the Apes with Charlton Heston. Now, the only thing, gentlemen, if you vote for that one, I cannot find it online, so you're going to have to get your own copy. I know I have my copy, though. Probably a lot of you have your own copy. But so one of those two, we've got 4 votes so far. Lots of time left to vote. I don't even know what are the results. Oh, my goodness. The results are 4 for Planet of the Apes already. So it's got 100%. So if you want to go and vote, go ahead. We're looking for that, and that's the one we will do for next time. If you want Damnation Alley, Planet of the Apes is in front, so get over there and vote. And we should have mentioned this earlier, but the channel has qualified. We've qualified for super chats. So if anybody wants to send a super chat on this show, or it's kind of late, we should have mentioned it earlier. This show or the other show, yeah, we're open for those. If you want to support the channel, yeah, you can go ahead, send us a super chat. We'll read it on the air, whatever you say, especially if it's insulting to Cam. We will definitely read that for sure. And yeah.
Well, people do that for free right now. So
we read them for free too. Yeah. All right. What else is coming up? Is there something coming up on Wednesday, Cam? Do you know?
No, can't think of anything.
No.
Oh wait, yes, the Babylon 5 retrospective at 11 p.m. Eastern.
Mm-hmm. Same time as the show starts. We like to keep everything simple so that nobody. Yes, and Death Angel Shadow was the first to ever super chat the channel. He gets the prize. Yeah. Yeah. What do you remember? What that show was about?
It's the episode episode 20. The Long Twilight Struggle is the name of the episode.
Ooh, it sounds good. Have I watched that one yet? I think I watched that. I was getting
it's
antsy.
a Centauri War episode.
Oh yes, I did. I have seen it. I watched it last week. Yeah, so Centauri War.
My DVD player has been when I turn my TV on, it's been defaulting to the DVD player, so it starts to play that episode.
Yeah. Yeah, so we're getting down to the short strokes here from season 2. We've got 3 episodes left, and my understanding is they're all very impactful. Is that correct, Cam? I wouldn't know because I haven't seen them.
I'd say I'm a virgin. So, pretty much, yeah.
Now I have seen this next episode. I watched it already. I watched it on Thursday or something, and I couldn't wait. And yeah, it's pretty good. A lot of Centauri stuff. Can't believe how. I'm going to mention this on Wednesday, how Londo's he's pretty arrogant. He's getting pretty arrogant. I thought he would be a little less arrogant after all the things that befall him and what happens and stuff, but he's still pretty arrogant. He's pushing that. I was a little surprised, but yeah, we can talk about that. And also on that show on Wednesday, we are going to be premiering something interesting. We're going to be premiering the season 3 promo made by Madman. Put one together for us, and we're gonna premiere it on the show, and then we'll put it up on the channel. Try to develop a little bit of interest in the start of season 3. Hopefully that'll get us moving right along. And it's a pretty good promo. It's better than the promos that I've done. I gotta admit, he did a better job than me. Maybe I can learn something from him. But yeah, it's good. And then we'll be popping up a shorter version for Jason's channel and that kind of stuff. Try to get a little bit of interest going. So yeah, if you want to see the opening of the promotion there for season 3, yeah, we'll do that on Wednesday. And Cam, have you decided if you're going to be part of season 3 or not? Are you? I get the impression you're sitting on the fence so far.
No comment.
No comment? Oh, okay. Have to wait till the last minute. One in the chat if you want Cam to be part of season 3. 2 for no. Huh?
Oopsie.
All right. That's it. Anything else you want to mention, Cam?
Death Angel Shadow wants to know if I will be joining on Discord. I need to take a break because I want to eat something. So I'm going to maybe do that, but maybe I'll jump in there.
Oh, Cam will deign to come down off his high horse and talk to us plebes in the chat. Oh, right on. Awesome. We're lucky us.
Yes.
Lucky us. All right. So I think that's it for the show. I don't believe have we missed anything? Did we miss anything, Cam?
I don't think so.
Let me just let's just flip back to that. I hope you guys enjoyed the 50 different slides of the various pulp covers that I put in there. I like those. I think they look pretty cool. I thought I would throw them in there. Yeah, because I thought they were good. Oh, the chat's down. 1-1. Oh, Weatherman doesn't want you to be on the show anymore. PB says 11. Oh, I guess that I don't know what that means. Season 3 of Babylon 5 is really good. Yeah, hopefully we'll get a couple more people. Out for that. But yeah, it's good. I mean, we have great discussions. Anybody who's not there for Babylon 5, great discussions in the chat, and on the show. But also the chat's pretty good with talking about stuff. So yeah, we get a good little back and forth there. Talk of a Mass Effect series. I think the storyline in Mass Effect is quite good. You could, if you did a good job at it, it would be good. Yeah. So that's it, Cam. We didn't forget anything.
Nope.
Wait. Oh, it's just coming through. Oh, jokes. We forgot the jokes. Now, I had a little trouble this time finding jokes about Pulp Sci Fi. They don't really exist, and I didn't have enough time to make up the my own. Thanks, JT. Appreciate that. You know, it can be hard sometimes. You're working away, and you don't know if people actually like what you're talking about. But anyway, so these are just some random jokes. Yeah. Oh, Zero lets Cam decide. Yeah, it's in his contract that he gets to jump out of the show. At the end of every season, he gets the option to withdraw if he so wants. Is there something I should be? Is this important, Cam?
No, that's for later.
That's for later. Okay. All right. Okay. Cam, did you hear about the wig thief who escaped from prison?
No, I didn't hear about the wig thief that escaped from prison. No.
Do you? Well, police are combing the area to find him. Did you know that? Get combing because he's a wig thief. Comb your hair.
Yep, get it.
Yeah.
Please keep going.
Please keep going.
Yeah.
Have you ever tried to? Have you noticed if you throw a can of Coke at someone's head and it hits them in the head, it doesn't really hurt? Have you noticed that?
No, I haven't noticed that.
You haven't? Oh, should next time we meet, I'll try you. I'll throw one at you and you'll see. But the reason is it's because it's a soft drink.
Yeah,
it's nice and soft.
Yeah, I like that one.
You like that one? Really?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't get you, man. I thought that would be the worst one. All right, last one. I got to end with a really, really bad one. I don't like
banger
jokes.
Let's go.
Do you know why libraries are so tall?
No, why are libraries so tall?
Because they have many stories. That's how you get a tall building. Stories, get it? But also stories because you read the stories.
Yep.
Yeah.
Perfection. We couldn't do better, so that will be the last joke segment.
That's the last joke. I hope you enjoyed the show. We only do the jokes because Jeff demands them. He's the only one.
Yeah, I'm liking Jeff less and less.
That's my plan.
Okay.
Get the hate out there. Right. All right, that's it for the show, everybody. Hope you enjoyed it.
Thanks, everybody. Great chat. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for helping us out there. Next week we're going to talk about, I don't know. We have to find some sort of topic to discuss. I'll think of something, hopefully, by the end. We haven't missed a show yet, so I'll carry on. Yeah, and don't forget the Babylon 5 show on Wednesday. Should be a banger. These next 3 episodes are all pretty high power. I think you're going to enjoy it. Good night, everyone. We shall see you on Wednesday or next week. Good night.
Good night.